Hello, everyone, and welcome to Divine Femininity United. I am your girl, Dr. Bianca Mz Bee Lee, and we are here for our Sunday session, our Sunday public reading, collective reading of the impeccable, amazing, phenomenal book, The Power of Intention, written by Dr. Dwayne. Wayne. I don't want to give him a whole other prefix to his name. Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. Learning to co-create your world your way. Learning to co-create your world your way. This is an amazing book, you all. It's been amazingly transformative since we began, and I am eager to continue on in this book reading. If you all don't have your book, you already know what to do. Send a message, send an email, or inbox, wherever you're listening from. We are live via Clubhouse. We are live via Facebook. We're live via YouTube as well. Okay. So if you need the reading materials, inbox us here. Wherever you need to inbox us, or you can send an email to info@biancamzblee.com, and you'll be able to get your copy of the ebook in PDF form for you to be able to take wherever you need to take it at your disposal. Okay. Now, as we read and go along in our reading for today, which is chapter 6 um, of this book, I want you to utilize the chat. Okay. Utilize the chat, use your voice, say if something resonates with you, say if something stuck out to you. Okay. Say it, use it, comment and things like that, because I am going to be paying attention to the communications and things like that. Your voice matters. And if something, rang loud for you, share it, say so. Okay. You never know who you're going to be helping or blessing or whatever with your voice. Okay. Alrighty, you all. Without further ado, we are going into chapter 6. Okay. Intention and infinity. Intention and infinity. There's a quote here by Joseph Campbell, and it reads, "Eternity is not the hereafter. This is it. If you don't get it here, you won't get it anywhere." I feel him on that. Okay. Here we go. Please indulge me in a little exercise right here, right now. Put this book down and say out loud, "I'm not from here. I'm not from here." Let the meaning of the words be clear to you. The meaning is that you are in this world, but not of this world. You've been taught that who you are is a body with your name, made up of molecules, bones, tissue, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. You know yourself as the person with your particular name, and you identify yourself as the person with the possessions and achievements that you've accumulated. This self also possesses some terrifying information. It knows that if it's lucky, it's destined to grow old, get sick, and lose everything that it's grown to love. Then it will die. This is a shortened version of what the world has offered you, which probably leaves you mystified and flabbergasted at the absurdity of this thing we call life. Into this bleak picture, which inspires fear and even terror, I'd like to introduce a concept that will eliminate the terror. I want you to know that you needn't subscribe to the idea that you are only this collection of bones and tissues, destined to be annihilated in an aging process. You've emerged from a universal field of creation that I've been calling intention. In a sense, this universal mind is totally impersonal. It is pure love, fondness, beauty, and creativity, always expanding and endlessly abundant. You emanated from this universal mind. And as I keep telling you, universal means everywhere and at all times. In other words, infinite. As long as your wishes are aligned with the forward movement of this everlasting principle, there's nothing in nature to restrict you from attaining the fulfillment of those wishes. It's only when you choose to allow ego to oppose the expanding, receptive forward movement of the infinite mind of intention that the realization of your wishes doesn't feel fulfilling. Life itself is eternal, and you spring from this infinite no thing called life. Your ability to connect to the eternal and live in the here and now will determine your staying connected to intention. That's good. Next section, life is eternal. Life is eternal. We all live on a stage where many infinities gather. Just take a look outside tonight and contemplate the infinity of space. There are stars so distant from you that they're measured in the distance that light travels in an earthly year. Beyond those stars that you can see are endless galaxies that stretch out into something we call eternity. Indeed, the space that you occupy is infinite. Its vastness is too huge for us to see. We're in an infinite, never ending, never beginning universe. Now, pay close attention to this next sentence. If life is infinite, then this is not life. Read that again and consider that life truly is infinite. We can see this in everything that we scrupulously observe. Therefore, we must conclude that life, in terms of our body and all of its achievements and possessions, which without exception begins and ends in dust, isn't life itself. Grasping life's true essence could radically change your life for the better. This is an enormous inner shift that eliminates fear of death. How can you fear something that can't exist? And connects you permanently to the infinite source of creation that intends everything from the world of infinite spirit into an infinite world. Learn to be comfortable with the concept of infinity and see yourself as an infinite being. While we're in this infinite world of beginnings and endings, the power of intention maintains its infinite nature because it's eternal. Anything you experience as other than eternal is simply not life. It's an illusion created by your ego, which strives to maintain a separate address and identity from its infinite source. This shift towards seeing yourself as an infinite spiritual being having a human experience rather than the reverse, that is, a human being having an occasional spiritual experience, is loaded with fear for most people. I urge you to look at those fears and face them directly right now. The result will be a permanent connection to the abundance and receptivity of the universal source that intends all of creation into temporary form. That is so true, man. We give so much credence to this temporary stuff. We really do. We really and truly do. My goodness. Next section, rather. Your fear of the infinite. Your fear of the infinite. We are all in bodies that are going to die. And we know this. Yet we can't imagine it for ourselves. So we behave as if it weren't so. It's almost as if we're saying to ourselves, everybody dies but me. Right. This is attributable to what Freud observed. Our death is unimaginable. So we simply deny it and live our lives as if we weren't going to die because of the terror that our own death instills. As I sat down to write this chapter, I said to a friend that my goal was to leave the reader with a complete absence of the fear of death. Let me know if it touches you in a way, that way, even on a minor scale. When I was a 7-year-old, I lived with my older brother, David, in a foster home at 231 Town Hall Road in Mount Clemens, Michigan. The people who took us in while my mother worked to reunite her family were named Mr. and Mrs. Scarf. I remember this as if it occurred yesterday. David and I were sitting on the back porch of our home, and Mrs. Scarf came outside with 2 bananas in her hand and tears flowing down her face. She gave us each a banana, saying, "Mr. Scarf died this morning." It was the first time I had experienced the concept of death connected to a human being. In my 7-year-old naivety, I asked her, attempting to soothe her obvious pain, "When will he be back?" Mrs. Scarf responded with one word that I've never forgotten. She simply said, "Never." I went upstairs to my bunk, peeled my banana, and lay there attempting to comprehend the concept of never. What did being dead forever really mean? I could have handled 1,000 years or even 1 billion light years, but the idea of never was so overwhelming with its no ending and more no ending that I was almost sick to my stomach. What did I do to handle this incomprehensible idea of never? Simple. I forgot about it and went on about the business of being 70 years old in a foster home. This is what Constantina meant when he said that we're all in bodies on their way to dying, but we behave as if they're not. And this is our greatest downfall. That is so true, man. Next section, your own death. Essentially, there are 2 points of view regarding this dilemma of your own death. The first says that we're physical bodies that are born and we go on to live for a while, and then ultimately we deteriorate. Our flesh wears out, and then we die and are dead forever. This first perspective, if you embrace it either consciously or otherwise, is terrifying our alive viewpoint. Unless you embrace the second point of view, it's completely understandable that you fear death, or you may welcome it if you hate or fear life. The second point of view says very simply that you're eternal, an infinite soul in a temporary expression of flesh. This second point of view says that only your physical body dies, that you were whole and perfect as you were created, and that your physicalness emanated from the universal mind of intention. That universal mind was and is formless. It's the pure energy of love, beauty, kindness, and creativity, and it can't die since there's no form involved. No form, no death, no boundaries, no deterioration, no flesh, no possibility of it wasting away. Now, which of these 2 points of view gives you the most comfort? Which is associated with peace and love? Which involves fear and anxiety? Obviously, the idea of your infinite self keeps you on friendly terms with infinity. Knowing you're first and foremost an infinite being, consciously connecting with your source, which is eternal and omnipresent, is surely the more comforting prospect. Because of its infinite nature, it's everywhere. And it then follows that the whole of spirit must present at every point in space at the same time. Thus, spirit is present in its entirety everywhere, which includes you. You can never, ever be separate from it. You'll learn to laugh at the absurd idea that you could ever be separate from the universal mind. It's your source. You are it. God is the mind through which you think and exist. It's always connected to you, even if you don't believe in it. Even an atheist doesn't have to believe in God to experience God. The question then becomes not whether your body is going to die, but rather on what side of infinity you wish to live. Ooh, that's good. Ooh, that's good. You have two choices. Either you live on the inactive or the active side of infinity. Okay, which is good. In either case, you have an appointment with infinity, and there's no way to avoid it. Next section. That was good, man. Next section, your appointment with infinity. Reread the Joseph Campbell quote at the beginning of the chapter. Eternity is now. Right now, right here, you're an infinite being. Once you get past the fear of death as an end, you merge with the infinity and feel the comfort and relief that this realization brings. We identify everything in this material world through a space-time continuum. Yet infinity has no preference for time and space. You aren't the elements that make up your body. You merely make use of the elements. That is it right there. You go beyond space and time and are merged with the infinite universal mind. If you haven't recognized it, it's because of your fear. You can keep your appointment with infinity while you're in your temporary body with its slavish adherence to time and space. My goodness, slavish adherence to time and space. You're a slave to time and space. Yikes. My objective in this chapter is to help you realize and do this. If you make this merger, I assure you of a life without fear of death. Let's take a look at both of the elements in the space-time prison in which we find our material bodies. and all of its treasures. The factor of space means that we're experiencing separation from everyone and everything. This is my space as defined by my boundaries. Those are your spaces. My goodness. Even your most cherished soulmate lives in a world apart from yours. No matter how close in space you get, the boundaries are separate. In space, we're always separate. In space, we're always separate. It's true. Trying to imagine an infinite world without space and separation is extremely difficult until we make our appointment with infinity. Time is also a factor of separation. It is. We're separated from all of the events and memories of our past. Everything that has happened is separate from what's happening right now. The future is also separate from the here and now, where we're living. We can't know the future, and the past is lost to us. Therefore, we're separated from everything that ever was and ever will be by this mysterious illusion we call time. When your infinite soul leaves the body, it's no longer subject to the constraints of time and space. Separation can no longer interfere with you. So, my question to you isn't about whether you believe you have an appointment with infinity. It's about when you're going to keep that inevitable appointment. You can either do it now while you're still alive in your body, in the illusion of time and space, or you can do it at death. If you decide to make your appointment with infinity while you still live and breathe, it's like learning to die while you're alive. Once you make this transition to the active side of infinity, your fear of death dissolves and you laugh at the folly of death. Exactly. That's absolutely where I've been for the last several years. I don't even, it's a beautiful thing to me. It really, really is, because death is life, it's all one. Understand your true essence. Look death squarely in the face and break the shackles of slavery to that fear. You do not die. Announce it, meditate on it, look at it from this angle. If you're not an infinite being, what would be the purpose of your life? Surely not going through the motions of being born, working, accumulating, losing it all, getting sick and dying. By waking up to your infinite essence and staying connected to the seven faces of intention, you begin to free yourself of the limitations your ego has placed on you. You set in motion the guidance and assistance of the infinite universal mind to work with you. And most of all, you feel the peace that overtakes you when you expel your fear of death and immortality. I'm touched by the stories of great spiritual teachers leaving this earthly plane feeling blissful and fearless. They banished all doubt, extricated all fear, and met infinity head on with grace. Here are the final words of a few of those people I long admired. Teresa of Avila, her last words: "The hour I have long wished for is now come." Oh, that's beautiful. Aldous Huxley, last words: "Let us be kinder to one another." Robert Louis Stevenson, last words: "If this is death, it is easier than life." I know that's right. John Quincy Adams, last words: "This is the last of earth. I am content." Yes. Oh, this is beautiful. Ludwig van Beethoven, last words: "I shall hear in heaven." Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, last words: "Light, light. The world needs more light." William Blake, last words: "I am going to that country which I have all my life wished to see." Thomas Edison, last words: "It is very beautiful over there." And lastly, Mahatma Gandhi, last words: "Ram, Ram, Ram," which translates to God, God, God. Why not write your own final words now and make your transition to being an infinite being while you still occupy your body? Ooh, that's good. Ooh, that's good. My goodness. As you consider your appointment with infinity, look at how most of us live our lives. We know we're in a body that's going to die, but we behave as if it's not going to happen to us. This viewpoint is from the inactive side of infinity, where we don't see our connection to the intention and our ability to stay in harmony with our creative spirit. Let's examine the essential difference between keeping your appointment with infinity now or at death. In one case, you'll be on the active side of infinity, and in the other, you'll avoid it by being on the inactive side. Okay. Next section, the active versus the inactive sides of infinity. The active versus the inactive sides of infinity. On the active side of infinity, you're fully cognizant that you're in a body that's going to die. Furthermore, your inner knowing is that you aren't that body, its mind, or any of its achievements and possessions. On this active side of infinity, you have a good grip on that trolley strap I described earlier, which is connected to intent. And you're an observer of all your sensory experiences. This may not sound like a big deal to you. However, I assure you that once you move your inner awareness to the active side of infinity, you'll begin to notice miraculous happenings in your daily life. Yes. On this active side of infinity, you are first and foremost an infinite spiritual being, having a temporary human experience. And you do all of your living in all of your relationships from this perspective. On the inactive side of infinity, your experience of life is quite opposite. Here, you're first and foremost a human being having an occasional spiritual experience. Your life is guided by a fear of death, a separation from others, a competitive style, and a need to dominate and be a winner. This inactive side of infinity separates you from the power of intention. Here are some of the distinctions that I see between those who live in the active side of infinity and those who deny their eternal nature and opt for the inactive side of infinity. The first, a sense of destiny. In the active side of infinity, your connection to intention will no longer be thought of as an option. That's it. But as a calling that you must heed. The inactive side of infinity leads you to see life as chaotic, purposeless, and meaningless, while your position on the active side of infinity leads you to fulfill a destiny that you feel deep within yourself. When I look back at my life, I realized that my sense of destiny was directing me at an early age. I've known since I was a child that I could manifest abundance into my life. While sitting in high school and college classes where I was bored to death by teachers who conveyed their lack of passion in their dreary presentations, I dreamed of talking to large audiences. I vowed in those youthful days that I'd live my passion and somehow knew that I was here for a reason. I couldn't allow anyone or anything to deter me from my path. I've always sensed that I'm really an infinite soul, disguised at various times as a husband, father, author, lecturer, and balding 6 foot plus American male. Because I live on the active side of infinity, I have a sense of destiny that won't allow me to die with my music still in me. Come on. Ooh, my goodness. I've been saying this, what I'm about to say, I've been saying this since I was a little girl, that when I am buried, they will literally be lowering an empty body in the ground because I intend on utilizing every gift, every skill, every talent, every single thing in me before I leave this planet. That's real. Okay. He just stated this. He says, because I live on the active side of infinity, I have a sense of destiny that won't allow me to die with my music still in me. That part. Okay. So I'm never concerned about whether I'm a die early or whatever. No, I'm going to leave here when I'm complete, when I'm finished, when I have done all that I need to do. That's when I'm going to leave here, which will be in its perfect timing. Okay. You make the same kinds of choices. You can make the same kind of choices. Just let go of the idea that you're a body that's destined to die and instead seek an awareness of your immortal self. On the active side of infinity, you'll find your greater self, of which a small part has materialized as your body. I guarantee you that simply recognizing yourself as an infinite and therefore indestructible being Your connection to intention and the ability to manifest all that you desire within the confines of your universal source will become your reality. There's no other way. There's no other way. Your sense of destiny lets you know that you're playing this game of life on the active side of infinity. Prior to accessing your sense of destiny, your motivation was what you wanted out of life and what you'd like to do. On the active side of infinity, you realize that it's time to do what your destiny intended you to do. Wallowing around, hoping things will work out, waiting for your luck to change, and hoping others will come through for you no longer feels right. Your sense of destiny allows you to realize I am eternal. And that means that I showed up here from the infinitude of spiritual intention to fulfill a destiny that I must act on. You begin stating your objectives in the language of intention, knowing they'll materialize. You enlist the power of intention to keep you on track. It can't fail because there's no failure in the infinite. It can't fail because there's no failure in the infinite. Thus, as an infinite being, there's no failure in me. This 13th century poem may inspire you to know you have your destiny. This is written by Rumi. Rumi is one of my favorite poets. Rumi, man. Ooh, okay, here we go. You were born with potential. You were born with goodness and trust. You were born with ideals and dreams. You were born with greatness. You were born with wings. You were not meant for crawling, so don't. You have wings. Learn to use them and fly. Come on. If Rumi composed this poem from the inactive side of infinity, his words might be more like the following. You are an accident of nature. You are subject to the laws of luck and chance. You can be pushed around easily. Your dreams are meaningless. You were meant to live an ordinary life. You have no wings, so forget about flying and stay grounded. Yikes. Yikes. Listen. Ooh, that is no place to live. That is not. Let me go back and read Rumi. I want to read that again, you all. You were born with potential. You were born with goodness and trust. You were born with ideals and dreams. You were born with greatness. You were born with wings. You are not meant for crawling, so don't. You have wings. Learn to use them and fly. Mm. Next section, a sense of the possible. Creation acts upon the everlasting possibility that anything that is thought of can be. Consider some of the numerous great inventions which we take for granted today: airplanes, electric lights, telephones, television, fax machines, computers. They're all the result of creative ideas by individuals who ignored the ridicule they encountered while they stayed focused on possible rather than impossible. That is right. That's so true. In other words, a sense of the possible grows in the fertile terrain of the active side of infinity. I have here in my writing space a wonderful account of four children who refused to allow the word impossible into their hearts. Eddie was born without hands or feet. At age 5, he went to South Africa and saw a mountain he wanted to climb. He climbed it in 3 hours. And at age 13, he decided to play a trombone. He sees no reason why he shouldn't achieve whatever he sets out to do. He lives on the active side of infinity, consulting that world of infinite possibilities. Yes, Abby was desperately ill and needed a heart transplant. When she saw her mother crying, she told her, "Mommy, don't cry. I'm going to get better." At the 11th hour, a heart miraculously became available, and Abby is better. Abby's intention came from that world of infinite possibilities. It's the active side of infinity where intentions manifest. Stephanie was 5 years old when she came down with meningitis and had to have both of her legs amputated. Today, at age 12, she rides her own bicycle and has dreams that go way beyond those of most teenagers who possess all of their limbs. Her personal slogan is push to the limit. After two major heart operations while just a toddler, The doctors told little Frankie's parents that they could do no more. Frankie lived only because she was on a life support machine. When her parents were advised to have the machine turned off because Frankie couldn't survive and would only suffer, they finally agreed. But Frankie survived. She was somehow on the active side of the world of infinite possibilities. The caption beneath her photo says it all. You didn't think you could get rid of me that easily, did you? I love it. I love it. Come on, Frankie. Okay. The power of intention involves staying on the active side of infinite possibilities. George Bernard Shaw, who was still creating into his 90s, has been quoted as saying, "You see things as they are and you say, why? But I dream things that never were and I say, why not?" Come on. Think of Shaw's words as you practice staying on the active side of infinity, and seeing the infinite possibilities that are available to all of us. I love that. The next, a sense of awe. A sense of awe. You have to admit that just the concept of infinity is awesome. No beginning, no ending, everywhere at once, no time, and all of it here and now. The fact that you're a part of this infinite universe and that you emerge into finite is mind boggling. It defies description. The active side of infinity inspires a sense of awe. When you're in a state of awe, you're in a persistent state of gratitude. Perhaps the surest ways to happiness and fulfillment in life is to thank and praise your source for everything that happens to you. Then, even when a calamity arises, you can be assured that you'll turn it into a blessing. Correct. In the inactive side of infinity, you assume that you're only here temporarily, and therefore you have no obligation to the universe, the planet, or its inhabitants. By denying your infinite nature, you move through life taking everyday miracles for granted. As you become acquainted with your eternal nature, you have a very different point of view. You're in a persistent state of gratitude for all that shows up. This state is the secret to fulfilling your own individual human intentions. And without it, all of your most sincere efforts will amount to naught. Being in a state of gratitude actually creates magnetism. It does. And of course, a magnet draws things to itself. By giving authentic thanks for all the good you now have, as well as the challenges, through this magnetism, you'll start the flow of more good into your life. Every successful person I know is grateful for everything they have. This process of giving thanks opens the door for more to come. It's how being an inactive infinity works. Your sense of awe at all of the miracles you see around you allows you to think, see, and live more of these miraculous occurrences. In contrast, a state of ingratitude stops the infinite flow of abundance and health. It's a door closure. Yes, it is. Next, a sense of humility. A sense of humility. The active side of infinity fosters a sense of humility. When humility enters your soul, you know that you're not alone in this world because you sense the heart of the power of intention, which is in each and every one of us. To quote the Talmud, even if you be otherwise perfect, you fail without humility. Yes, you do. When you embrace the active side of infinity, you're looking at something so enormous that your little ego is dwarfed in the process. You're looking out at forever, and your little life is but a tiny parenthesis in eternity. One of the reasons for so much contemporary depression and ennui is the inability to see ourselves connected to something greater and more important than our own puny egos. Young people whose primary focus is on their possessions, their appearance, their reputations with their peers, in short, their own egos, have very little sense of humility. When the only thing you have to think about is yourself and how you appear to others, you've distanced yourself from the power of intention. If you want to feel connected to your own purpose, know this for certain. Your purpose will only be found in service to others and in being connected to something far greater than your body, mind, ego. I always told my young clients in counseling who were desperate for approval from their peers that the more they chase after approval, the more they'll be disapproved of, because no one wants to be around those who beg for approval. People who receive the most approval are unconcerned about it. So if you really want approval, stop thinking about yourself and focus on reaching out and helping others. The active side of infinity keeps you humble. The inactive side of infinity keeps you focused on me, 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 and ultimately is a roadblock to your connection to intention. Yes, it is. Willem Steckel made a remarkable comment on the importance of humility, which was quoted by J.D. Salinger in Catcher in the Rye, and said, Steckel wrote, the mark of the immature man is that he wants to die nobly for a cause, while the mark of the mature man is that he wants to live humbly for one. Okay. Um, a sense of that's true. That's true. That's true. Going on to the next section, a sense of generosity. If asked, why do you give us light and warmth? I believe that the sun would answer, it's my nature to do so. When you're on the active side of infinity, no. I skipped the line. We must be like the sun and locate and dispense our giving nature. When you're on the active side of infinity, giving is your nature. I'm going to read that again. When you're on the active side of infinity, giving is your nature. The more you give of yourself, no matter how little, the more you open the door for life to pour in. This not only compensates you for your gift, it also increases the desire to give and consequently the ability to receive as well. When you're on the inactive side of infinity, you view life in terms of shortages and hoarding becomes a way of living. Generosity, as well as the inclination to reach for intentions, is lost when you think in these terms. If you can't see an infinite universe with infinite supply and infinite time and infinite source, you'll be inclined to hoard and be stingy. The power of intention is paradoxically experienced through what you're willing to give to others. Intention is the field of energy, which is emanating in infinite supply. What can you give if you don't have money to give? I love Swami's advice, the last name I can't pronounce, but I love Swami's advice, and I encourage you to consider it here. Everything that he suggests, you own in infinite amounts. It reads, the best thing to give your enemy is forgiveness, to an opponent, tolerance, to a friend, your heart, to your child, a good example, to your father, difference, to your mother, conduct that will make her proud of you, to yourself, respect, to all men, charity. Make giving a way of life. It is, after all, what source and nature do eternally. I've heard it said about nature that trees bend low with ripened fruit, clouds hang down with gentle rain, noble men bow graciously. This is the way of generous things. I love that. And it's so true. It's so true. Next section, a sense of knowing. A sense of knowing. Your infinite source of intention has no doubt. It knows, and consequently, it acts upon that knowing. This is what will happen for you when you live on the active side of infinity. All doubt flies out of your heart forever. As an infinite being in a temporary human form, you'll identify yourself primarily on the basis of your spiritual nature. The sense of knowing that comes from the active side of infinity means that you no longer think in terms of limits. You are the source. The source is unlimited. It knows no boundaries. It's endlessly expansive and endlessly abundant. This is what you are too. Discarding doubt is a decision to reconnect to your original self. This is the mark of people who live self actualized lives. They think in no limit, infinite ways. One of the no limit qualities is the ability to think and act as if what they'd like to have is already present. That's right. This is another one of my 10 secrets for success and inner peace in the book of the same title. The power of intention is so doubt deficient that when you're connected to it, your sense of knowing sees what you'd like to have as already present. There are no contrary opinions whatsoever. It's true. Here's my advice for accessing the power of intention. Stay on the active side of infinity, where all the energy for creation exists in everlasting supply. Night and day, dream of what you intend to do and what you intend to be, and those dreams will interpret your intentions. Let no doubt into your dreams and intentions. The dreamers are the saviors of the world. Just as the visible world is sustained by the invisible, so too do the manifestations of man find nourishment in the visions of our solitary dreamers. Be one of those dreamers. I know that's right. Absolutely, man. Next, a sense of passion. A sense of passion. The Greeks have given us one of the most beautiful words of our language, enthusiasm. The word enthusiasm translates to a God within. Within you is an infinite, passionate soul that wishes to express itself. It's the God within you, urging you to fulfill a deep sense of what you were meant to be. All of our acts are measured by the inspiration from which they originate. When your acts display the faces of intention, they spring from a God residing within you. This is enthusiasm. When you emulate the power of intention, this is where you'll feel the passion you were intended to feel and live. The beauty of feeling passionate and enthusiastic is the glorious feeling of joy and cheerfulness that comes along with it. Nothing provides me with more joy than sitting here and writing to you from my heart. I enthusiastically allow these teachings to come from me, through me, from the source of all intention, the universal mind of all creativity. But quite simply, I feel good. I'm in a cheerful mood, and my inspiration provides me with joy. If you want to feel great, look into the mirror. Say to your image, I am eternal. This image will fade, but I am infinite. I am here temporarily for a reason. I will be passionate about all that I do. That's good. Then just notice how you feel as you stare at your reflection. Being cheerful is a wondrous side benefit of enthusiasm. It comes from being in the active side of infinity, where there's absolutely nothing to feel bad about. Yes. Mm. Next, a sense of belonging. In a world that lasts forever, you certainly must belong. The active side of infinity inspires not only a strong sense of belonging, but a strong feeling of connectedness to everyone and everything in the cosmos. It's impossible for you to not belong because your presence here is evidence that a divine universal source intended you here. Yet, when you live on the inactive side of infinity, you feel a sense of alienation from others. Your idea that this is all temporary and that you aren't a piece of God's infinite perfection leads you to self doubt, anxiety, self rejection, depression, and so many more of the low energies I've written about throughout this book. All it takes is a shift to infinite awareness to leave that feeling of misery. As Swami stated, taught his devotees, all life is one. The world is one home. All are members of one human family. All creation is an organic whole. No man is independent of this whole. Man makes himself miserable by separating himself from others. Separation is death. Unity is eternal life. So true. This concludes my idea on the active and inactive side of infinity. I urge you to remind yourself every day, as frequently as possible, of your infinite nature. It may sound like merely an intellectual shift of minor consequences, but I assure you that staying on the active side of infinity and reminding yourself of it regularly will put you in a position to manifest your desires. Of all the quotes on this subject I've read, this observation made by William Blake stands out. He states, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. Remember, we're attempting to clean up the connecting link between ourselves and the field of intention. That's good. 5 suggestions for implementing the ideas in this chapter. Number 1, since you already know that you have an appointment with infinity and that you're ultimately required to leave this corporal world behind, make the decision to do so sooner rather than later. In fact, today, right now, is a great time to keep that appointment and get it over with once and for all. Simply announce to yourself, I'm no longer identified by this body and mind, and I reject this label from this moment on. I'm infinite. I'm one with all of humanity. I'm one with my source. And this is how I choose to view myself from this day forward. Yes. Number 2, repeat this mantra to yourself each day as you remind yourself that God wouldn't and couldn't create something that doesn't last. Come on. God wouldn't and couldn't create something that doesn't last. This is the mantra. I will exist for all eternity. Just as love is eternal, so is this my true nature. I'll never be afraid again because I am forever. This kind of inner affirmation aligns you on the active side of infinity and erases doubt about your authentic higher identity. Number 3, in a meditative stance, consider the 2 choices of belief on this concept of infinity. You are, in the truest sense, as I said previously, either a human being having an occasional spiritual experience or an infinite spiritual being having a temporary human experience. Which of those give you a feeling of love and which inspires fear? Now, since love is our true nature and the source of all, anything that creates fear can't be real. As you see, the feeling of love is associated with yourself as an infinite being. Then you must rely on this feeling to tell you the truth. Your place in the active side of infinity assures you of a feeling of security, love, and permanent connection to the intention. Number 4, in any moment in which you find yourself thinking low energy thoughts of fear, despair, worry, sadness, anxiety, guilt, and so on, just for a moment, stop and consider whether this makes any sense from the perspective of the active side of infinity. Knowing that you're here forever and always connected to your source will give you an entirely new outlook. In the context of infinity, living any moment of your life in anything other than appreciation and love is a waste of your life energy. You can quickly dissipate those lower energies and simultaneously connect to the power of intention by cleansing those lenses of perception and seeing everything as it is, infinite, as William Blake suggested. Number 5, take a few moments to reflect on the people you were close to and loved who have crossed over. Being aware of your infinite nature and staying in infinity's active side allows you to feel the presence of those souls you can't die and did not die, who can't die and did not die. In John O'Donohue's book of Celtic wisdom called Anankara, he offers these words with which I not only concur, but I know to be true from my own personal experience. It states, I believe that our friends among the dead really mind us and look out for us. We might be able to link up in a very creative way with our friends in the invisible world. We do not need to grieve for the dead. Why should we grieve for them? They are now in a place where there is no more shadows, darkness, loneliness, isolation, or pain. They are home. They are with God from whom they came. Yes. You can not only communicate with and feel the presence of those who's crossed over, You yourself can die while you're alive and rid yourself now of these shadows and darknesses by living in the active side of infinity. This concludes part one of the power of intention. Part two will be a series of chapters describing how to put this new connection to intention to work in a variety of ways in your life. As with the first part, read on with a mind that is not only open to the possibility of your achieving all that you can imagine, but to knowing that on the active side of infinity, all things are possible. Now, you tell me what that leaves out. That's good. Oh man, y'all, this was good. I'm excited about part two now. Well, I've been excited about this whole book, but part two, sheesh. Wow, that was good. That was good. That was so good. My goodness, that was good. I got to play that back for my own self, okay? If you're just getting here, welcome, welcome, welcome on all platforms that we're live on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You all, I have offered this book for you to read. We've already gotten through 6 chapters already, okay? There are several to read, but you're not far behind if you have not gotten the book and if you have not, been keeping up with us. Get the book. Get the book. Get the book so that you can read it. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss it, okay? For those who are viewing via Facebook and YouTube, the information is on the screen. And then those who are listening on Clubhouse, whether present or by replay, then you can tap the go through the information in the bio, or you can tap my website above my head on the screen there to receive an ebook of the reading material. Inbox me, back channel me, send me your email address so I can send you the book, okay? You want this book. I promise you, you want it. Not even just for reading collectively with us. You want the book. Period. This I'm telling you is mind blowing. Part two, which is going to be on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. It begins with putting intention to work. Putting intention to work. There's a quote here by Thomas Merton, and it states, "We are already one, and we imagine we are not. And what we have to recover is our original unity. Whatever we have to be is what we are." Come on. Part two begins on Tuesday, okay? You all listen. Again, get your book, get your book, get your book. Reach out and get your book, all right? This concludes today's session. I don't keep you long. We do one chapter and we are through, okay? We are going, and I want to send you back to your day. You all keep it, turn on the notifications, you all, so you don't miss the gatherings, you don't miss the conversations, whether you can listen in real time or whether you have to come back and play it in the replay. It's perfectly fine. I always say I'm not for everybody, I'm for somebody. And whoever those somebodies are, whether you hear me in real time or whether you have to hear it whenever you do get it, that is the perfect time for you to get it, okay? I know that. I'm okay with that. Whether I have anybody with me in real time in any session, any platform or not, I trust that this message will fall on the ears of the perfect person at the perfect time, whenever, whether I know about it or not. Again, I'm not for everybody. I'm for somebody, and I know that my message will reach whomever it needs to reach. Okay, so with that being said, listen, I'm gonna send you back to your day, your afternoon, your evening to spend with your family, your friends, to get yourself prepared for the next work week, to get your mind together, to align yourself with yourself, and to send you in love. I love you all. I mean it. There's absolutely positively nothing you can do about it. Don't you even try it. It will never work. I will talk to you all on Tuesday. Peace.